for starting your week with us. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Lee in Seoul. Let's get started with a look at today's highlights. Korean households are tightening their purse strings amid sluggish growth that has sent the ratio of low-budget families skyrocketing in the third quarter. Thanks to new homes added to the greater metropolitan area, the increase in monthly rental transactions is slowing compared to jeonse rentals. These stories and more coming right up. And the latest sign of the gloomy economic conditions here in Korea, a new report shows that a growing number of households are living a no-frills lifestyle, even cutting down spending on daily necessities. Our Shin Se-min starts us off.
Koreans are spending less amid the ongoing sluggish economic growth. The proportion of Korean households getting by on a monthly budget of under 1 million won or $850 has hit a 7-year high. Data from Statistics Korea shows the figure from the July to September period came in at 13%. That's the highest since the 14% recorded in the third quarter of 2009 when the country was hit hard by the global financial crisis. The agency added that the number of households spending less than 2 million won, or roughly $1,700, went up a bit in the third quarter from the quarter before, while those spending between $1,700 and $3,300 had fallen. The trend is widely attributed to the government's ongoing corporate restructuring drive, growing household debt, and rising unemployment. The corporate restructuring drive has resulted in job losses in the thousands for the shipping and shipbuilding sectors, which have been hit by a sharp slowdown in global demand. The household debt figure shot up to over $1,093 billion as of the end of the third quarter, growing at a faster pace than it did in the preceding 3 months. In particular, Koreans are spending less on daily necessities. Household spending on food and non-alcoholic beverages fell 3.2% in the third quarter from the year before, representing the 4th straight quarter of decline. That's also the longest losing trend seen since the agency began collecting data in 2003. Looking ahead, observers project even more bleak economic circumstances. Factors like the Federal Reserve's recent rate hike, with more anticipated down the road, and the potential impeachment of the Korean president for her involvement in the ongoing abuse of power scandal could push private consumption down even further. Shin Se-min, Business Daily.
After the proportion of monthly rental homes traded here in Seoul peaked early this year, an increasing number of tenants are now on the lookout for lump sum deposit jeonse homes again. Our Lee Joo-young tells us why.
The record low interest rate had seemed to be quickly reshaping Korea's housing market, replacing lump sum deposit jeonse homes with monthly rentals. This as monthly rental transactions took up about 40% of the home market as of January, almost doubling from levels seen just 3 years ago. But in the latter half of the year, the tide seems to be shifting yet again. According to the Seoul metropolitan government, the share of transactions for rentals in the city, which peaked at 38% in March, dipped to about 30% in September and stayed there for the past 3 months. Experts say this is mainly due to the large quantity of homes newly added to the greater metropolitan area, also pushing up the number of jeonse homes available. As prospective tenants also followed the fresh supply, landlords who had been keen on switching over to monthly rent are said to be giving this up to reduce potential losses caused by vacancies. In fact, while monthly rental transactions increased only about 12% last month from June, jeonse rentals more than doubled by almost 27%. With more homes set to be added to the capital's real estate market next year, market watchers project the proportion of monthly rental homes will continue to fall to below the 30% mark in 2017. Lee Joo-young, Business Daily.
The Korean equity market didn't move much on the first session of the week. Global monetary policies are still expected to be the dominant factor for global financial markets this week. We're now joined by our markets contributor Choi Jin-seok to talk about stock market performance and upcoming market events. Hello, Jin-seok.
Great to be here.
All right, so how did the Korean stock market close on the first trading session of the week?
Both the Kospi and the KOSDAQ stock market fluctuated throughout today's session. The Kospi closed at 2038.39, down by 0.19% compared to the previous session, while the KOSDAQ closed with a slight uptick of 0.11%. The Kospi market opened the session with a slight downtick as foreign investors unloaded shares as the U.S. stock market performed weak in the previous session, but the index erased early losses once heading into positive territory as foreigners shifted their position to buy during the session. The KOSDAQ was at risk of falling for the first time in 8 sessions, but it also erased early losses in the afternoon. Overall sentiment was mostly muted as investors already digested major market events last week.
Now, last week, the U.S. Fed Reserve's rate hike was among the major market events, and we still have related events to this, right?
Right. Most of all, investors will concentrate on what Fed Chair Janet Yellen will say during her speech in Baltimore on Monday. Yellen will possibly provide more insight on the Fed's policy direction heading into 2017. Since her speech this time will be on the state of the U.S. job market, the event can give hints on how she assesses the U.S. economy at the moment. The Fed signaled in projections released from last week's FOMC that it would raise its benchmark interest rate 3 times in 2017, faster than previously anticipated after approving the first increase in a year. Along with Yellen's speech on Thursday, the PCE Consumer Price Index will draw attention from investors. The Fed has been closely monitoring conditions of the U.S. labor market as well as inflation trends.
And following the U.S. Fed Reserve as well as the Bank of Korea's monetary policy meetings last week, this week we have the Bank of Japan's monetary policy meeting coming up. So what are the expectations on that?
On Tuesday, the BOJ will wrap up a 2-day monetary policy committee, and the central bank could raise its assessment of the nation's economy for the first time since May of 2015, according to the Wall Street Journal, citing people close to the bank. An upgrade could spook market expectations for further monetary easing from the BOJ in the coming months. Experts also expect the bank could raise its long-term interest rate objective not at this week's meeting, but sooner than later. BNP Paribas predicts the bank might raise its objective at its January meeting. Given this, it seems more rational not to expect much from the BOJ meeting in terms of additional measures to boost the economy.
And among global economic indicators, we have U.S. GDP growth figures expected again. And a lot of people will definitely have their eyes on this.
Right. On Thursday, the U.S. Commerce Department will report U.S. household spending and income figures for November. Both spending and incomes increased in October, but a separate measure showing retail sales growth slowed in November. A weaker pace of spending could present a headwind in the fourth-quarter economic growth. Along with that, as you said, final Q3 GDP growth will be unveiled. Experts project the world's largest economy grew by 3.3%, slightly better than previously announced figures. Continuous economic recovery in the U.S. will serve as a positive catalyst in global equity markets.
And as we're getting close to the year's end, the so-called Santa Claus rally looks to be on the horizon. So how likely do you think this is?
Overall sentiment is not bad at all.
Okay.
Santa rally is a reference to the stock market surge toward the end of the year that typically takes place around Christmas. December is historically a good month for stocks as well. Seasonality and expectations for dividend paying usually boosts sentiment among investors in December. This year has not been an exception. The U.S. Dow Industrial Average had risen by almost 10% even after the presidential election, And the Kospi has risen by about 4%, and the Kosdaq has surged by about 5% from early December as well. Therefore, we most certainly can expect another standard rally in the near term. But there's still reason to be cautious. Some experts still think the recent rally is just a blip, led by just a few stocks that had underperformed all year long. Since trading volumes in the year-end are usually weak, investors also need to brace for fluctuations like today and high volatility.
Well, for now, we'll definitely look forward to that Santa rally. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Korea will host the Asia-Europe Economic Ministers meeting next year, which has been on hold for more than a decade. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy said on Monday that officials have set up a committee to make preparations for the upcoming gathering, adding that it will help improve economic and trade cooperation between the two continents. Now, the last time a full-scale economic ministers meeting took place was back in 2003 in Dalian, China. There are high hopes that the resumption will help further promote free trade in the region, as well as encourage inclusive growth and creative innovation amid growing trade protectionist sentiment worldwide. Korea's second largest automaker, Kia Motors, has seen its sales more than double in Mexico last month. According to the Mexican Automotive Industry Association, Kia sold 5,460 vehicles in November, up over 140% from a year ago. In the first 11 months of the year, the automaker sold a total of over 52,000 units, more than 5 times what it sold during the same period last year. Sales have seen a sharp increase after Kia began operating its Mexico plant in May. With that, Kia holds the 8th largest market share in the country at 3.7%. Japan's Nissan Motor topped the list, followed by GM and Volkswagen. The boom in sales also comes amid concerns that car makers may be in for a battle against U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's pledge to slap high tariffs on vehicles produced in Mexico and shipped to the States. For the first time since commercial flights in and out of Korea began 68 years ago, the number of annual air passengers has exceeded 100 million and done so easily. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport says an estimated 138 million people would have flown by the end of this year. It represents a big jump from last year when the same figure was around 89 million. The milestone comes less than 10 years since the number of annual flyers surpassed 50 million in 2007. The enhancement of Incheon International Airport, vitalization of regional airports, expansion of low-cost carriers, and low oil prices have been cited as reasons behind this year's spike. The Gangnam area, located in the southern part of Seoul, has reemerged as a beacon of light for the country's retail industry, which has been stuck in a rut due to the protracted economic slump. Korea Tourism Organization says this comes as an increasing number of individual foreign tourists are now less inclined to visit old palaces or shopping outlets located north of the Hangang River, and instead prefer to visit famous restaurants and fashion streets in Gangnam. In fact, the number of foreign tourists visiting the district has been increasing by 19% every year since 2012. Nearly 90% were individual travelers, and this is also seen as the reason why the 3 major duty-free operators, Lotte, Shinsegae, and Hyundai Department Store, are planning to open shop in the booming area. Now, if you're considering a gift for a single dweller friend or family member, home appliances could be a good option. Producers are pushing out new products to capture a budding demographic, now making up the biggest portion of modern Korean households. Our Eunice Kim has more.
This is a kimchi refrigerator for a party of one. With smaller coolers like this and pressurized rice cooker shrunk down from larger sizes, this single dweller has appliances that fit his or her life more perfectly.
With the rise of the single-person household, we released a 3-person premium rice cooker. Sales have surged and customers are responding very well.
For those living without a lot of space, a washer that's hung could be a desirable option.
We sold more than 2 million units now. We're planning on further developing this line of mini appliances aimed at the single dweller.
Last year, the single-person household made up 27% overall, becoming the largest demographic in Korea, followed by 2- and 3-person households. And Korea is far from alone. China's single dwellers have exceeded 200 million. As such, its small home appliance market is exploding. By 2020, it's projected to be worth nearly $67 billion, recording an annual growth pace of 12%.
We're seeing a rapid rise in small electrical appliances with the growth of the one-person household. They're mainly in their 20s and 30s.
Korean brands already sought out for their premium products are positioning themselves to capture more of the growing one-person household market at home and abroad. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. Until then, goodbye.